mid-season update show. We are so stoked to have you guys here today. It's
Oh
going
God,
to be
this quality.
jam-packed. I hope you guys are ready. Got your snacks, got your drinks. Strap in because it's going to be a long one. We got tons of balance, a ton of awesome skins, including the Avatar Battle Pass, and a rework and a remodel. And here to break things down with me, I got AJ and Pond from Design. How are you guys doing?
Good. I'm. You guys are looking great today, might I say? I knew I would be
I
wearing
know.
a new shirt, but I did not know all of y'all would be wearing a new shirt. Apparently, the Tev team has a favorite FanForge item.
For sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I had to actually venture out of the apartment to go get it, but it's been going good.
I ordered mine day one that they went online, and it got here just in
Nice,
time.
yeah. You know,
Nice.
we had to get prepped and ready to go. And it's going to be a long show, so let's go ahead and get right to it, guys. We're going to kick it off with the bonus update that's going to be live next Tuesday, June 20th. And let's kick it off with bonus balance. Aphrodite going to be up first. Undying Love, her ultimate ability. We're increasing the cooldown from 90 down to 70, and it's going to be 90 seconds at all ranks here.
Aphrodite's still putting up some pretty big numbers. This is a counterplay focused change, right? This item provides, or this ability.
Bro, we need to
provides, we're gonna talk about a
stabilize
lot
the
of
cameras,
items.
boys. I can't do
But
it. I'm gonna get
immunity
fucking
and CC
boat
immunity,
sickness,
damage immunity, and
motion
CC
sickness,
immunity
water
for two
sickness,
people
ocean
on a
sickness.
team. That's a really big fight swinging type of ultimate, and low cooldown, and especially a low cooldown plus a low cooldown build,
We
can
turned
make
it
it
up.
really
It's
hard to
fucking
find windows where you can
blasting.
actually make a play against
Is that
Aphrodite.
better?
So
Can you
something
hear
like this is
me?
going to help a lot of
Can you
counterplay
still
against her.
hear? I'm still here, guys.
For sure. All right, next up,
Turn it up.
Cthulhu.
What the fuck is
The
wrong
big
with you?
boy is getting a little bit of a nerf here in
God.
bonus balance.
Cthulhu
Descend
man,
into
let's go.
Madness is
Or
ultimate
nerf.
ability. We're going to be increasing the cooldown there from 100 seconds to 120. We're also removing some damage mitigation during the wind-up. And then Transfuse, the ultimate 3, we're going to be reducing the healing on that.
Yeah, it was really fun watching his release. It seems like he's been driving some people insane. Some people thinking he's really strong. Some
He's
people think he's a little
broken.
He's
underwhelming.
nuts.
Yeah, we're on the edge of he's pretty strong. We're looking to deal with some frustration issues people are having. The ultimate is obviously a really big swing kind of play that you can make. We're gonna make this cooldown a bit more appropriate for that level of power and give a little more counterplay to where if you're trying to burst him, you can't just use this as an immediate effective immunity. And then Transfuse provides some healing and some extra utility, turning that back down. Just hits towards like that big key moment. Overall, he's doing really well, and we're excited to see how people keep playing with him.
For sure. All right, up next, Heimdall. We're going to be seeing a nerf to Galahorn, decreasing the knockback strength on that ability. And then the Bifrost, we're going to be increasing the base time it takes to teleport.
Oh,
Here
baby,
I'm
the
singing,
nerf.
singing a similar tune as Aphrodite. These are big counterplay changes. Heimdall uses that knockback strength mostly to interrupt people that are diving on him to gank him. And the Bifrost, that is a pretty big change actually.
the 2
0.3
change is
seconds
good.
might look like a relatively small amount,
It's
but
not
in terms
insane.
of
3
combat
change is good.
inside of
3
Smite,
change is great.
that's a relatively long time, and that is referring to specifically the time he has to stand inside of his own crystal before he teleports out. So increasing that is gonna, both of these changes combined are gonna make Heimdall a little less safe to play. Really, he's got really strong damage and some control elements, which are kind of his features. He really is not supposed to have so much safety. So both of these nerfs are there to address that.
Cool.
You're
All
right, dude.
We got a
Thank you
nerf
for
for a
13
Norse
months.
Hunter. Now it's time for a Norse Mage. Hell going to be seeing a nerf here in our next bonus update. Decay/Restoration. We're going to be decreasing the damage on that. It's going to count for both the light and the dark stance.
What's
and then
base
we're also
time?
going to be
Like
decreasing
standing in it for
healing
you to travel.
scaling on the light stance for this ability.
Yeah, so we saw a lot of people really pick up Hell and see it as this very valuable
think.
mage. Her
Unless it's
early
the
game bowling
literal
potential is
travel
obviously
time,
very
that was
high, and the
stupid.
sustain she brings to her team are really high. So we're toning back both those aspects. The base damage on Decay and Restoration will kind of like limit her lane bowling ability, as well as the decreased scale on the healing will just affect her healing over the course of the whole game. I feel like these 2 adjustments are going to bring her down just the notch that we need to.
All right. It's just Norseland. We're just in Asgard. Another Norse god, a guardian this time, Jormungand, the
You're
World
good.
Serpent. This is a general change. We're just going to be decreasing the basic attack damage on Jormungand.
Yes, especially with the Warrior's Blessing changes we've seen recently, that was mitigating a lot of Yorm's basic attack damage, which now he's doing more damage because of that. He was already pretty clearly in the meta. He had been dropping, I'd say, a little bit in pro play, but he was definitely still a contender.
Yeah, the
that Warrior's
nerf
Blessing change pushed him back into the top slot,
kinda,
and here we are to
kind of weird. I feel like
readjust
it's a little
again.
too, like a little
And,
late. Like,
you know, we're going to
not as
see a
valuable,
lot
man.
of solo lane changes later in
That's
today's
probably
show.
why.
So spoiler
They're gonna
alert.
get rid of sustain, so
we're,
Yorm's gonna be better.
we don't want Yorm and Gunder to really be there bullying people out when we want to have a good time for experimentation with the new items and other gods that we're buffing today. So hopefully this makes it a nice open playing field for the mid-season patch.
All right, moving right along. Next up is Nike. She came out of nowhere and saw some pro league play, and players tend to agree that she's pretty strong. So we're going to be seeing a nerf to her barrier formation, decreasing the damage on that ability.
That's a 2,
and then
right?
Sentinel of Zeus, her ultimate. We're going to be decreasing the slow duration from 6 seconds at all ranks, and then making it scale up from 4 seconds to 6 seconds.
Yeah, we saw especially Nike jungle really was a thing that like pushed Nike into the forefront of competitive play, and then we saw some more flexible play from Nike outside of that. But the base stamina barrier formation was contributing a lot to clear and bowling capability, and especially that level 5 your ult, that 6-second duration slow was really the thing that pushed her over the edge. We're turning that back down to 4 seconds, giving players more opportunity to counterplay around it, but keeping
That's
the strength
what pushed
of her
over the
late game
edge.
fight.
Not the 50% shield.
All right. Next up on the list is Sobek, and we're going to be seeing a nerf to lurking in the waters here.
Yes,
we're going to be
nerf is all.
decreasing the protections that he gains while channeling this ability.
This character is still one of the top played gods in ranked Conquest.
Thank you, CS.
Has been for most of the season so far, since some buffs we did recently. We did a little bit of a nerf a couple patches ago, and now we're looking at another one here. Specifically, Lurking in the Waters is an ability that does a lot of things, right? It can do pretty big damage if you make sure you complete that channel time.
Sobek.
It also makes Sobek really, really hard to kill. Sobek is already pretty good at escaping from dangerous situations. Sometimes, you know, missing that pluck can mean certain death for Sobek, but other times he gets out of things that you are just like, there is no reason that should have happened. So here we're just going to decrease this protection bonus a little bit, make sure that he has those available punish windows. Again, you know, a similar theme as you've seen us addressing some of these other changes here today. We think that with these strong gods, regardless of where their win rate lies, a lot of times counterplay issues are what cause a lot of frustration.
Some dumb shit?
So you see that
those
we're
Nike
here
nerfs
really
are
focusing
teeny
on that
tiny,
today.
but I bet you Nike gets played a million times less now.
Last up for bonus balance, we've got Yemoja. We're going to be making a change to Mending Waters, decreasing the shield, and then Riptide. We're going to be decreasing the movement speed bonus that allies gain after traveling through the Riptide.
Yeah, I think we saw near, if not 100% pick ban for Yemoja, which is why she's kind of on this list still. Just the utility that she really brings to a team fight and that flexibility, especially with her OP system.
Movement speed change, crazy.
Allows you to just spam heals and shielding on people, or to get them out of trouble, or to try and pick people with Riptide. We're just taking away some of the safety of the shielding as well as the utility of the Riptide for her own team, allowing teams to really kind of chase after Yemoja a bit more effectively.
Cool. Well, that wraps it up for bonus balance, guys. Those changes are going to be live in game for you guys next week, June 30th.
Those are the early
We've
changes.
also got a few awesome skins that we want to show off. The first one being Living Weapon Tier. This is going to be a part of the Grim Omens event, the last chapter in that event. So if you guys haven't bought into Grim Omens yet, tons of awesome content there. And this tier skin is really, really cool.
I really like how this one turned out. This was a kind of a difficult one when we were first coming up with the idea, but the artist execution across the concept and modeling team.
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, that hand is so creepy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's really a new take on a sort of mutant or maybe a little bit demonic type of feel.
That's fucking badass.
Yeah, for sure. The more I look at it, like the more things I notice that are just insanely creepy.
It reminds me of
he's got an entire mouth just on his side underneath his arm.
It reminds me of an old single player game.
How did that even get there? And apparently, I heard
where you had like your arms could turn into like different things, like swords and shit.
Unique tongue animation that plays randomly.
Prototype.
So, you guys are playing.
It reminds me of Prototype, dude.
Scary jaws open up, and he has this like big lizard tongue that comes out, and it is like you'll see it if you go into the game and you go to the god selection screen to look at his model in the game. You'll definitely see it. It's awesome.
A Prototype.
Yeah, that's creepy. All right, next up for Grim Omens, the last skin in Chapter 4 is Mystical Manipulator Nox, and this one is really cool.
Safra_tip $3.
So another of our Mystic line, but with a twist. We did a bunch of the Mystic skins earlier. I think it was mostly last year.
I don't think my code's 30% off anymore.
And this one we were looking at Nox, and we thought about really kind of approaching it almost more from the villain aspect, but within that theme.
I think Nox has too many skins now. Fuck Nox.
Yeah, when writing
I like the
voice
little
pack for this,
floaty
we really
passive
saw,
thing.
like,
That's dope.
kind of
Set
like
of
exploring like
candles.
the idea that the mystic
Her hair looks cool too.
like archers kind of come in and like ruin her plans all the time, and she's done with that.
Super cool.
What about
Yeah,
you?
so now
Save
you've
us
got
up,
a full
brother.
team of Mystic Archers, and now you got the villain to fight against. It's going to be super cool. All right, the last skin for the bonus update that we want to show off today is Galaxy Forger Vulcan. This is another one in our new recent take on the Galaxy theme, and these are some of my favorite that we've done.
Vulcan was a great choice for this theme. The way he
I wanna see the
constructs
abilities.
things, and he's got his turret there and his hammer. It's a really cool idea.
Oh my gosh, I love the like black hole in the head. That's just cool. It's a really cool focal point. Oh, look at that
is
hammer.
super cool too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nox
yeah,
is the
it's
highest
dope.
skin play amount
It's like
ratio
galactic,
ever.
but it
Wait,
has
really?
that kind of like prism structure on it, so it's like a solid object. Oh, that's cool.
Looks too
Really
much like
nice.
a
I
golden
love how
skin.
these have, like, you can see like the stars floating and all the textures. These just, the art team just knocks these out of the park.
I don't
It's
know. The
super
back
cool.
piece is a little too much for me.
All right, that is it for our bonus update. That'll be live for you guys next week on June 30th. Now we just want to take a little bit of time to talk to about some community news for you guys. The first thing that we want to talk about is, you guys all see it. We're all rocking the For Fans by Fans merch that is newly available. All that stuff is available now. Tons of community created designs, shirts, hoodies, mouse pads, backpacks, tons of awesome stuff that you guys can pick up. And I also
They're
want to
really
give a
nice.
short shout out to Zelgot, who actually won the competition. And if you guys haven't played a game yet, you can play a game and unlock this avatar in game for free.
Nice.
And we got to shout out to our guy Rage and Cajun for designing this specific
Oh, for sure.
shirt that all three of us are wearing today.
Yeah,
Raging Cajun.
it's great.
But there's a lot of other really cool designs on there. This one's a
Wait.
little more comedic, but if you're looking for something more serious,
Isn't
we have
Raging
a few
Cajun
from
in
Rob
our
draws that
community?
are beautiful. There's some really cool stuff. There's some cute ones. There's some serious ones. We got a really good selection.
For sure. All right. Last up for community news, I gotta plug the Maxnomic
Yeah, where's
chair.
my
I'm
boy
not
at?
Dulcin, so I'm gonna try my best here. But we've got the pre-orders available for the Smite X Maxnomic chair, and we've got the code Smite Max that you guys can use
Code
for
weekend
a discount. And I
on
actually heard
nothing that they're
actually
promoting
throwing
right
in
now
a
on
free
everything else.
embroidery to put your gamer tag or in-game name here.
Your
So yeah, like I
name,
said, I'm not
your
Dulcin, but here's a
logo.
video for you guys to check out.
You have yet to see the meaning of cruel.
Let the heavens rage!
That's it. I'm not sponsored by any chairs, so it's whatever. Don't buy that chair for the love of God. Don't buy the fucking chair. If I catch any of you with the chair. A good title for our bot 1v1s. Yo, stream, help Double J come up with a title for when we did our 5v5, me and him, his bots versus my bots games. Give him a title. This chair is probably like 400 fucking bucks. Let me catch you guys with that shit. Like I said. This is a big patch. Where the fuck are the viewers at?
That chair is looking super clean. Hope you guys are comfy because we're getting ready to lock in and start talking about the mid-season update. We're going to start with Project Olympus, and the first thing that we want to talk about is Mastery skins. It looks like Kronos, Kumbhakarna, Yanis, and Agni are going to have their Mastery skins updated. And correct me if I'm wrong, AJ, but we're done.
I'm honestly afraid to say that myself because it's something that has been 3 or 4 years in the making, but I believe as of now we have
Good choice,
updated
Tommy. How do
all
you like
of
it?
the gods mastery skins to the newer higher quality style, and it's just, I mean, it's been a massive task. It feels very good to have finally completed
Before they
it.
talk too much more,
I know, right?
these kind of chairs right here, same kinds, the
Check off
Maxonomic,
everything that's been on your
they are
tutorial.
cheap chairs. They're
actual
for the
gears.
price.
You know,
They're
they
not for
look- They look
comfortability.
great, of course. So, looking forward to having all of the people who main those characters be able to finally bring themselves into season 7. with the
Yes,
new
Double J.
Mastery
Yes,
skins.
there you go.
Yeah, I think we saw the Reddit thread about Kumba like literally yesterday.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, there was. He looks much
right,
better now.
Definitely. Speaking of looking much better, the God of War is going to be looking a whole lot better in mid-season update. He is getting a visual update. We kind of hinted at it a couple shows ago, but the Ares visual update is coming out in the mid-season update. His base model, recolor, and mastery skins are all getting an update, and that card art is so dope.
It really is.
Good.
The model is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Are we going to jump into game to look at it today?
Yep, I
This
believe
model's
we have
pretty
turnaround
basic,
videos
bitch, but
for the
okay.
base model here
Let's check
that
it out.
we'll be able to show. There we go.
Looks like
He looks-
Achilles.
His hands,
finally,
they're
like
normal.
the God of War.
I like the sword. The sword
And
looks
don't
cool.
forget that
Sword and shield
recolor.
is so dope.
Ares recolor with the all black armor is also
Mercury
one of the
jumps
coolest
into an
recolors in the
Achilles
game. So when you
suit
see
and then
that
put
one
on a
with
shield
the
and
new
got
model,
Ares
it
abilities.
looks so good. The Masteries, the art team. I'm so stoked about this. You know I'm a big Ares player, and he looks absolutely gorgeous.
For sure.
Oh, there
it
There's
is.
the
Yes.
card art for the
Alright.
recolor. I don't think we
I
have
like
the
the dark
models ready
version.
for the recolor and the mastery, but you'll be able to see them in game once we go
That's
out live
me,
on
Mama.
PCS.
Shut
They
up,
look so
dude.
clean.
You fuck.
And the most important thing about this whole update to some of our veteran players is that the classic skin will still be available in the
yeah.
game. If you want to still look like original retro Ares, you will be able to acquire that similarly in the way that you did for the Isis redo.
Cool. All right, we got one more topic for Project Olympus that we want to talk about, and it's bonus chests. It's been a long time. We've been hearing feedback from players like, I got all these chests that I'm sitting on that I can't open. So we're actually making some changes to how we handle bonus chests next update.
Yeah, I have a shit
We'll
ton.
have a blog out later on this week that kind of goes into more detail. But the TLDR is that we're adding some extra items to those chests that you initially aren't able to roll right now, that you'll be able to roll and get rewards. And depending on the tier of the chest, you'll get different rewards.
Did you say
So it looks
Isaiah's
like
gotta go?
for, like,
Your
things
ass
like the
gotta go.
Divine
Get the
and
fuck
Awesome
out of my
chest,
stream,
you'll be able to roll those
Locust57.
and get
Get
gems.
the fuck
And then
out of
things like
here.
the champion,
Stream, show him
godlike, and
out.
hero chest,
Get him
you'll
out
be
of
able to
here.
now
He knows
roll
where the
those and
door
get
is, but
team
show him
boosters
out.
if you own everything in the chest.
Talk shit about Isaiah. One more fucking
Long
time,
time community
Locust.
request there. So those chests that you just haven't been able to get anything out of because you acquired the content none other ways, we're now going to give you straight up gems for those better chests, which is really nice. So
I get gems now?
yeah, a lot more
Let's go.
changes
I'm
to the
about
chests,
be
and we're going to
rich,
give
boys.
a lot more detail when we release that blog later in the week.
I'm gonna be so rich.
All right, you guys ready to
Get this
talk about
hashtag guy
balance?
out of here too, please.
For like the next hour and a half. Sure.
Yeah, we'll
Let's
see
go.
if we can get it done in a reasonable amount of time. It's so much stuff.
All right, let's go ahead and kick it off. And for you guys watching at home, patch notes are live on the site right now if you guys want to follow along. So let's go ahead and start.
Isaiah is
let's talk about
literally the
ranked
best
Bonbon. What
community
we got going
manager
on
I've
for
ever
ranked
had in
Bonbons?
any video game I've played.
Yeah, so ranked, we're doing
So,
this is the kind
shit
of mid-season
talking,
update
you
we
get
have
the
for
hammer.
ranked. The big things here are we're doing the kind of same style of
Get the
variant
fucking
reset
hammer,
and
boys.
the reset for the top end players. We saw a lot of success with that over the course of this whole kind of like season so far. We're continuing to keep it going, as well as this is the first time this year that we're resetting the God leaderboard as well. So we stopped resetting the God leaderboard, it allowed you to kind of build up your like maybe you had like 5 gods you're really good
Does
with.
that
You wanna
mean
get them all to,
Loki's
like,
coming out?
diamond and show that off. You definitely could, but now we're resetting that. So now maybe
If
there'll be
they're
another
resetting it,
number
does that
one
mean
Crucible
Loki's in
main
this
or another
patch?
one Thanatos main. So you got
The only reason you reset this is
we have
if
some more
Loki's in
stuff
this
in the
patch.
works that we're trying to get out to you that we wanted to get out for mid-season, but we couldn't quite get there. So we'll have an update for that as soon as we can.
Cool.
Why else would you
Stay
reset
tuned
it?
for more updates.
I mean, the
on
rat
ranked.
change
All
is,
right, next
is
up, let's talk
nice,
about
but like
Joust
Loki's the
really
important
quick.
one.
We're making some changes to the mode here, and it looks like we're going to be removing some protection scalings from fire minions, as well as decreasing their health
No
scaling.
Loki in the patch,
and
then
their
why are they
max
doing
health
this? That's
scaling,
stupid.
for the
Very
fire-
important to
They're gonna have to do it
Versus
again then when
and
Loki
archers.
change comes through.
This will affect Joust and Duel. So we did some balance on this throughout the year. We've been getting some feedback from, especially from dual players, that these extra tanky late game fire minions are kind of causing anticlimactic matches. So we're going to be toning that down. Make sure you really have to rely on that god versus god combat to end the game.
Cool. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the update. Let's talk about Conquest, guys. Give me the general idea of what's happening with Conquest in mid-season.
Yeah, this is probably better for
Pon-Pon?
AJ. No, I'll get it.
We were
Okay.
both trying to throw it to each other. Pon, you're my jungler.
Oh,
This
Jungle
isn't
Yeah.
Ninjas,
for
boys.
this isn't just
Here's
this
your
isn't just
volume,
for the
bitches.
jungle. It is a jungle update, but obviously in Smite, the jungle affects everyone.
Yes. So the big things that we're having here is the jungle is now going to be a much more living entity of the map. All the jungle camps as a whole are getting these new kind of treatments. Some of them will actually defend their own home territory. Some will be a bit more defensive. Each will have different
What?
abilities that you kind of have to play around. And if you don't play around them, you're going to be taking more damage. And that's all kind of culminating with, as well as some changes to the pacing of the jungle, how difficult they are to kill for both players who aren't junglers and junglers. So there's a lot to go over here. but we really did want to kind of overhaul the jungle, make it feel more living, make it feel like a bit more threatening, and something that with more investment that everyone could feel good about.
Well
For
said.
sure. And obviously, these are major changes here, but we're also looking towards Conquest for next season. Isn't that right, AJ?
Yes, we are comfortable to say today that in Season 8, there will be a new Conquest map.
Let's go!
Not going to say anything more than that.
Thank
Just want people to know
you!
that Conquest is still very important to
Thank
us
you,
as a
baby
development
Jesus.
team. And this current map, we think, has been very successful. We've learned a lot of things from it, and we've had a lot of fun with it. But in Season 8, we will be bringing a new Conquest map
Thank
to Smite.
God. Holy shit.
Exciting news. I cannot wait. All right, let's go ahead and start breaking things down. Let's start with the Jungle Shrine. We're making some changes here. Now it's in mid-season. It's only going to require a single attack to claim the full bounty, and then we're also increasing the gold per stack from 5 to 10.
Double
Let's
it.
go!
Double it, Pon Pon.
Yep, it's we got some feedback that the Jungle Shrine and optimizing the Jungle Shrine in particular didn't feel like a meaningful decision to make in the match. Sure, you could optimize it, but the reward wasn't quite there. The reward is much more there, as well as it now takes a single attack to fully claim, so no more like having to like actually
Feels
sit
so
there
good.
and wail on it for a while. You can just kind of like as you're going to your next camp, swing at it and get it. But the most important thing is being there to claim it.
Cool. All right,
Shrine
and
efficiency.
before we hop into the jungle, let's talk about lane minions really quick. We're making some adjustments, mostly to the AI. Pon, you want to go into detail on kind of the things that we're doing here?
Yeah, so we took a look at the AI for the minions. We know that there have been some like complaints about how they behave. Sometimes they don't feel very responsive. So now we have separate AI trees for both melee and archer. So in the future, especially, we can do a lot of separate treatment for them. But we did a performance pass on them to make sure that they were performative. Obviously, whenever you have something that's there times 72, you have to make sure that it's gonna work well. But the big things to note is the way they path the lane, the kind of jostling that we get, where sometimes the archer and the melee can kind of swap places or they get bunched up, that should be lessened. It'll be we've done some things to make their pathing smoother and make sure that they are moving to their locations as they should, as well as they are now going to be much more responsive and actually seeing you walk into lane. So no more you walk into lane, they just ignore you for a whole second. Now they'll be pretty snappy to actually look at you. And the final big thing, which will actually change a lot of how minion grouping works, is right now they currently target the same target until that target dies and then they choose a new one. Now after every shot they will retarget to their closest target, which means minion waves now kind of more evenly trade, and you're more likely to see them kind of bunch up in the center of the lane rather than like kind of snowball to one side and snowball there. So lots of changes that are going on there. It'll be really interesting to see you guys actually play around with them. But AI overall has kind of happened for these minions.
Big competitive implications here. You know, we've always kind of had some feedback about lane minions feeling a little inconsistent or sometimes really pushing waves even when no one was there. So now they should be more consistent, but AI is really difficult to predict exactly how it's going to occur. So of course, you know, keep an open dialogue with the community and with the pro players as we test this change.
All right, and one more point before we hop into the jungle. Just want to touch on mid lane really quick. The two new camps of the two small harpies that we added at the beginning of the season, these camps are going to be changed to have a single elder harpy instead of two smaller harpies.
Yeah, this is essentially a mid lane nerf. Mid laners are still getting really ahead in experience in most of our measurements. So instead of two small harpies, you're gonna have one large harpy. So it's gonna be worth a little bit less golden experience, and it's gonna be a little harder to kill. And you won't be able to split it, so it's more easy to be stolen. And then there's just going to be a lot of changes today across the jungle to the XP and gold rewards, as well to the tankiness. These, I would just say, be careful over reading into them in text. It can be really hard to kind of estimate and imagine in your mind how all of these numbers being shifted are going to play out. But when you get to the PTS and you get to this update launched, we are expecting to see more consistent performance from all the different roles, especially in the XP and gold gain areas. So we want junglers to be more even with mid laners. We want the duo lane to be able to catch up to the rest of the team better. All the changes you're seeing today in regards to experience and gold is the goals to make sure that all of the roles feel equally impactful.
Awesome. All right, let's hop into the jungle. What's going on in the jungle with these new jungle camps?
So we can kind of go down the list of each of the jungle monsters. The big things to note is some camps are now aggressive, so they will actually attack you upon sight and when you enter their domain. So you can see here, these guys are looking at me, but they're just kind of staring at me. They might not want to fight me. So we'll see that kind of behavior later. But now these guys, upon being like tankier as well, will also, you see that warning there on the ground? They're attacking
Are we
me.
going in game? Oh yeah, okay, here we are.
There we go.
So you can see there, I have to dodge these things while I'm fighting. So red warning, gotta sidestep.
What?
So every jungle camp is being assigned either aggressive or defensive. Aggressive monsters will attack you as soon as you enter the area, so you cannot even path through their area without them at least moving towards you and trying to attack you. Some of them will still be staying defensive, which is the way they currently behave. They won't attack until you hit them first. In addition to that, every jungle camp is having a new ability added to it. This is the Centaur camp, and he has the Spear Thrust ability, which if you don't strafe it, you're going to take a lot more damage.
Correct. And you can see here, these guys are really tanky. I'm 51 minutes into this match. Don't use this as the benchmark for how tanky these camps are going to be.
Wow, 51 minutes.
Yeah, you can see that the setup time it took to get this map launched up for us to stream it, but yeah,
Right.
you can see here, this is the attack, that's the one on the ground, and each camp is going to have their own unique thing to kind of consider.
Right, so
Alright.
the Manticores, Chimeras,
What's the
Harpy,
point of this,
Gold
though?
Fury, Fire Giant, those are the aggressive
Like, why?
monsters.
Is
So
it-
mostly the
most jungle
duo
camps
side of the map
insta-dive.
and the bosses. The
Like, I don't
defensive
understand.
They walked at me.
monsters are the more wise and civilized monsters across the map. So the Oracles, the Pyromancer, the Centaurs, and the Satyrs, so the solo side of the map, those monsters will not attack you unless you attack them first. One of the most important things here is this really just makes certain parts of the map more dangerous. You can't just walk through the Gold Fury pit to gank duo anymore. The Gold Fury will see you and try to attack you. If you enter the Fire Giant's
Okay.
area, he tries to summon magma
Okay.
pools under you. I know a lot of people use that area
I mean,
for a
that's
safe
cool.
like
I like
recalling.
that.
I feel like
The
that's
smaller
especially
camp things
commonplace
are
to do that
weird.
upon. Can't do that anymore.
But I
So
like it.
we're making the whole map a little more tactical and just the way you fight around the map, as well as trying to add a lot more of interesting interaction to the experience of jungling or just clearing your jungle camp from whatever lane you're playing.
For
And you can
sure.
see
So
there's a lot
It's
of
weird, but I like it.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Fawn. I'm sorry.
As you can see there, like especially when you're trying to ward this area, you might actually like cause a fire, like a fire pool to spawn, and you actually have to play around that. So there's a lot of high level consideration around these camps being more aggressive in defending their home territory.
Cool, for sure. So I think we just want to go down the list, and you want to start with the Alpha Harpy here, and just talk about all the new abilities for all the new jungle camps.
But let me go fast. Gonna
This is
ruin
me
it.
speed hacking on your
The
ass.
first
There
here
we
is the
go.
Alpha Harpy camp. You can see it's fighting me.
Bro, this is
And
gonna be
then there's that
more
kinda
annoying for
screech attack.
junglers because anytime I try to
Obviously this
gank,
is in
that shit might
dev.
put me in
Once we get into
combat.
PTS, we'll have like the full icon stuff there. You can see the temp icon there, but this debuff is going to actually be affecting my ability to deal damage to targets. It's going to reduce my attack speed. So if I'm going to fight this, I probably want someone to help me to take that attack speed buff, or if I'm the hunter, I'm just going to have to deal with
Yeah,
taking it more slowly.
it kind of is more blink nerfs.
One of the most interesting things about these changes is that some of them will even affect the way you fight gods after, or many of them will affect the way that you fight gods, or if you end up
Bro,
being invaded
it's
or
also
fighting
gonna
another
fuck
player
over
while you're
when
doing
people
this,
run
they're
into
going to
camps
affect you
using
here.
the
So
body
here,
block 'cause they're gonna kill you.
This 15% attack speed debuff, that slows down people that are fighting, and it's going to slow down
What?
your damage output. Also, every jungle camp is designed with a sort of gameplay challenge involved, something that you might often see in like MMOs and games.
This is
similar
gonna be
games.
fucking
So really, this
annoying.
Harpy, one way you can mitigate this, right, is to duo it. You can have your Guardian take the attack speed debuff so that your Hunter can still output that max damage. And each of these camps
This
has a
makes
little kind
jungling
of trick
annoying
to the
as
trade
fuck.
as you learn and fight with these new mechanics.
For sure. All right, next up we got the Elder Harpy and the regular Harpy. So these Harpies don't have any sort of new abilities, but they do follow the aggressive behavior type. So if you walk into their area, they'll
Right.
go out to attack you.
Yep. The Harpies are the baseline monster for the whole map. And even the aggressive type, especially pathing through the mid lane, getting that Harpy to come at you, has made me jump scare a few times when I was just trying to gank people, or it could interrupt your blink or some other things. You really have to be aware of your surroundings now.
Yeah, I tried to hide in a camp once, and I was like, oh no, the camp is just it's fighting me now. So it definitely changes how you're going to play.
Yeah.
For sure. All right,
So
next up we've
then-
got the Manticore, or the red buff, and he has got a new ability called Berserk. And I believe we're going to go in game here for all of these and show you guys.
Here I
Oh,
actually
you're gonna
have to
this.
get
Yeah, because he's super tanky. This one triggers when he gets to low HP. A lot of the abilities will trigger as you're fighting them, like just shortly after fighting them, but some of them have specific cases. This one, when the Manticore gets to low HP, he goes berserk.
Why?
Starts doing that rapid fire tail stab attack, which is going to make you take a lot more damage if you don't clear it quickly. And the kind of intended dev challenge here is to save your burst damage, save maybe an ability or two, till he's already low health.
Yeah, so you can see his attack speed right now. It's hitting for about 31 on me. And then when I actually get him to that berserk range, he's attacking significantly faster, like probably 1.5 or 1.7, as well as like he is hitting harder as well. Especially early game, this can absolutely destroy your health pool if you don't play around it.
You know how fucking fast that shit attacks.
For sure. All right, next up on the list, we've got the Chimera or the purple buff, and his new ability is Void Sludge.
This one's really interesting. We did a wide range of different types of abilities on these characters. We wanted to try a lot of different things. So you have things like the Centaur, the Manticore, which you kind of just dodge attacks. But then you have ones like the Void Sludge. So what this does is whoever gets first aggroed by the camp
soloing
will be
like red
afflicted by the Chimera's Void Sludge. It's an unmissable ranged projectile to shoot at you. What this does is apply a long duration debuff that decreases your protections by 20%, so makes you, quite vulnerable. But it also has another new side effect, which it makes you nearly invisible to minion AI. So you will be able to take more damage from gods, but you will also be able to make like power plays in lanes without getting the minions to aggro you. So you can do a really cool, interesting rotation after you fight this camp, and you go to duo lane, where one of your gods in your team can actually prevent themselves from being attacked by the minions.
Yep, there's a lot of really high-level things that you can do, especially in like level 1, like lane pressure. That's like a thing that you're kind of like dealing with minion AI, making sure they don't damage you too much. This really changes up, like, you can actually be aggressive and know that they aren't going to hit you if you utilize this buff effectively.
Cool.
Bro, I thought this shit was actually going to make you invisible.
The Centaur or yellow buff. We kind of touched on this at the beginning of the segment, but do you guys want to go into a little bit more detail on his new attack, the Spear Thrust?
Yeah, so this is a line warning area that is going to come from the center guy.
This stuff is cool.
If you get hit by it, it just does bonus damage. It's pretty significant, especially early on in the game, where if you just kind of eat all these, you're going to leave the yellow buff with quite low health pool. So you got to strafe and actually like kind of combat strafe to make sure you're not being hit by it.
So they just buff purple buff,
difficult to see people coming.
So
it's just an extra thing to kind of worry about. So try and avoid it if you can.
That's the simple dodge it one. For this one that we knew junglers would be soloing by themselves often in the early game, we didn't want anything too fancy, but we did want something that made them have to think a little bit more, made them have to move a little bit more. So you will have to watch out for that attack, which will do a lot more damage if you get hit by it.
Like, this is just unnecessary. Like,
right, and then last,
this shouldn't be a mid-season patch thing. This should be like a small change.
Buff, and we're right here. So what's going on with
we
this?
Added this guy. It's pretty cool. Have fun.
Yeah, this one has had some bigger balance changes as well. So now it's only a single satyr, and he is worth the same amount of XP and gold as a normal trio of camps. So this blue camp is still worth the same amount. His special ability is that he will summon spirit satyrs to help him. These have very low HP, but do a lot of damage, and you'll need to make sure you save an AoE attack or a cleave to clear these while you're fighting him, or you will end up wasting a lot of your basic attacks on them, or you'll end up taking a considerable amount of additional damage while fighting him.
You can see some of these abilities have cooldowns associated with them. So while I was fighting him the first time he spawned them, second time it was still on cooldown, and now the third time he's actually used it again. They are quite squishy. They don't give any actual additional reward, but if you don't have an AoE ability to really kind of get rid of them,
I can't wait for the bronze kids to die to camps over and over again.
The cooldown is an interesting thing because even players can use the cooldown as a way to circumvent the mechanic, and we're okay with that. But you're wasting time, spending time letting the camp reset, things like that. And the cooldown is important because some of these, when triggered multiple times, could have caused other problems. Right? We didn't want this to have a whole army of spirit satyrs just running across the jungle here. So I believe it's this one and the purple are the ones with strictly enforced cooldowns.
Yep.
Cool. All right, that wraps it up for buff camps. Let's start talking about some neutral objectives here. Pyromancer is up first, and the Pyromancer has a new ability called Infernal Ritual. What's going on with Pyromancer?
They literally nerfed my star before it even happened.
So the big thing to note is now the Pyromancer, and when we get to it, the oracles they already were, are now CCable. And the whole point there is they have this long duration channel that if you don't interrupt and don't play around, it's going to actually pretty negatively affect your ability to clear them, or make it so that enemies are more easily able to actually jump on you and hurt you.
I like that.
So for Pyromancy here, you can see that big giant wind up into a actual aura effect that's on me right now.
This shit hard as
have
fuck.
a debuff effect on me. And this one, I believe, is I take more damage. If I can
Wait, you get interrupted?
I'm taking damage, increased damage from all sources.
Wait, you can still solo it then?
15% if you get hit by it.
Like Arachne can still solo.
So yeah, if you're fighting Pyromancer and you don't really interrupt this effect, the enemy team can actually come out and pretty heavily swing a fight against you. I like that change. So Pyromancer might not be as safe of an objective if you can't play around this mechanic, or you don't have access to it,
Honestly,
or burn a stun, and that gives an opportunity for the enemy team to come in.
The
So there's
blue
definitely a lot more
one and the
consideration.
speed one are the only ones I think are really dumb.
One of the main effects that you're going to see
and the Chad
is,
Harpy one.
happening from the Pyromancer and the Gold Fury is that if you're just trying to bait the objective, so you know it's a common strategy in high level play where you attack it and you just kind of stand here and let the other team approach, this is going to make that more risky, specifically that play, because you're more likely to be afflicted by these additional abilities that these characters are not going to have.
But like the blue one's actually stupid and the speed one is pointless.
Cool. All right, moving right along, we're going to do the oracles next, and they have another ritual, but they have the
I also don't care about purple. I don't do purple.
And I'll go ahead and read what they've got going on. It looks like shortly after the oracles are attacked, they'll channel for 3 seconds, and if they successfully channel the ability, they cast the Guardian Ritual, which grants the oracles 40% reduced damage from all sources.
Yeah, so you can see there, I didn't interrupt the channel, and so my first leap did like 110 damage versus the 220 that it did when they were actually fully vulnerable. So if you don't interrupt this, it can drastically slow down your ability to clear these,
already are hard as fuck to kill by yourself early game. Holy shit. I think there's gonna be some weird jungle contention because of this,
touched on it earlier. For the Fire Giant, whenever you walk into the Fire Giant area, he is now going to spawn those molten pools.
Yep, so you can see here, I aggroed the Fire Giant, he's not happy with me, and now there's the Fire Pool underneath me.
We can't clear it.
So, easily avoidable, not something that's going to really interfere too much, but if I'm trying to bait Fire Giant, if I'm trying to like push people out and get position on here, I now have a little bit more to consider.
Is he going to keep aggroing?
For enemies to also counter engage.
Oh, it's only every 30
This one
seconds?
has scared me a few times just in playtest, right? I'm just walking through the jungle, I think I'm okay, and then boom, this Fire Giant appears under me. Like, it was really about making the jungle feel more alive. We have all of these scary, intimidating, mythical beasts everywhere, and they just kind of hang out and wait for gods to start beating up on them, right? And we just felt like that was a thematic miss. So we wanted to take a chance to add a lot more emotion to the map while also adding a whole lot more strategic
elements. It's unique and annoying, but it's also
I've definitely been paying more attention to the jungle monsters and what they do, and like recognizing that they're part of this living map. More so now than I have in other kind of situations, especially Fire Giant. He's like, get out of my area! Don't stand here. This isn't your like team fight platform.
Exactly. One more.
All right, last up for neutral objectives, we've got the Gold Fury, and it looks like there's going to be each new Fury, well, not new Fury, each Fury, there's currently 3, you know, regular, Oni, and then Primal. They're each going to have a unique ability. What's going on with the base Fury ability?
Slow?
Yeah, so you can see there, that's the kind of channel that all the Gold Furies are going to do, and they're also an aggressive camp as well, so they'll chase after you. But I believe the Gold Furies one is, I'm now worth more gold if I get killed.
Right. So all 3 Furies, their special ability is a channeling single target spell that stacks. So the Gold Fury will stack the Burden of Riches debuff on you, which will stack up to 6 times and slow your movement as well as make you worth more gold to enemy gods if killed. Which is pretty interesting. You know, it's a not that long duration of a debuff, so it's pretty specific interaction. But that's just an element of theming we really like. So the Gold Fury actually makes you worth.
If I steal gold and kill you with like a mage ult,
so the Gold Fury actually makes you worth
super
more gold.
fucking rich.
The Oni Fury will apply the Burden of War, which will increase damage taken from all sources, similarly to the Pyromancer. And the Primal will do the Burden of Dread, which will reduce the damage dealt. So because of these changes, like, Burden of War makes you take more damage from all sources, you might not want your Guardian tanking that. You might want to shift it up.
What the fuck you mean? I'm not tanking that shit. My Guardian is definitely tanking
reducing damage dealt. You definitely don't want like your assassin who sometimes start these camps on their own just because they have high lifesteal or something like that. You won't want them getting that stacked because they'll be losing that debuff. You can also interrupt these by wisely resetting the camp and transferring aggro between characters too, which I expect a lot of the pro players will master relatively quickly. But the thing is that this provides a lot of additional threat to just standing around with this camp aggroed to you, which is a pretty common thing to do. We want to make sure that that has a reasonable amount of risk and reward involved in that strategy. So along with all of these abilities, every single jungle camp, almost all of them, has a significant amount of balance notes, which we didn't go through and read all the numbers here because it'd be a little wordy for us to read out. But
not rude,
a lot
it's
of the
just
camps
weird
have been
and
made a little harder to clear, but they've also been made worth more experience. So we're gonna see junglers making their rotation, so as far as where in the jungle they're reaching at what timestamp, that's gonna slow down, but their level and experience is gonna actually increase.
You lead with that information?
And this also has a big effect on the rest of the map.
If I'm getting more XP, I don't give a fuck.
As I kind of mentioned
at
the beginning, we want to see a lot of playtesting, a lot of iteration, and a lot of feedback going forward to see how this feels. But it does a good job in our testing of making all of the classes and the different roles be more equivalent in experience gain.
Just wait, you seen
that
Janus
wraps it up
jungle?
for all of the Conquest changes. Lots of exciting stuff. I'm super excited to see what players come up with when interacting with all these.
Literally, that made everything make more sense. They're more annoying because they're worth more.
To kick it off, we've got a pretty big shift to physical penetration. What's going on, guys?
What?
So similar to our changes for magical penetration at the start of Season 7, we were looking and seeing that in a lot of cases people can kind of build one item and suddenly negate a lot of tankiness in the game. And so we wanted to separate percent pen, make it a stat that people are more regularly consciously building into their builds. And so like magical, where we created a few new percent pen options as well as some 20% options, physicals are also getting that change with a few tweaks. Unlike magical, items like Spear the Magus and Obsidian Shard, they have different considerations and different power level. So we've kind of adjusted all our items according to what physical specifically needs, as well as physicals have more kind of classes under their umbrella. So you have the hunters, you have the assassins, you have the bruisers, and you have the tanks, where mages are mostly ability focused, and we have in-hander. So there's a few more percent pen items. Some are specifically reserved for one type of class. Others are more, we're kind of expecting only certain classes to really lean towards them.
So what are the changes? Let's go.
So physical percent penetration is now going to have a 40% cap, but you can get physical percent pen from a variety of items, and we're going to go right into it and start with Titan's Bane. We're going to be increasing the cost here on Titan's Bane, increasing the physical power, adding 20% pen, but there's a new passive. Your first ability cast gains 20% physical penetration, and that has a 10-second cooldown on the item.
40 power.
Similar shift as you saw with Obsidian Shard, and this is especially going to be a much more popular item on ability-based characters.
You might not be building too much Titans,
as Tom was mentioning, we had to do a little bit of different strategies in applying this to physical because there's a lot of different types of gods. And you know, you used to see this as a one purchase for tank shredding on hunters.
You're killing a tank?
Probably not going to see that as much anymore. Maybe still on some of them or some of the ability-based ones, but probably not as much anymore.
Not dead.
And one other important thing to note about physical pen that's a little bit different of consideration as well, just to kind of give an example, percent pen on towers, right? That's something that used to exist in Smite. When we removed it, hunters saw their damage to towers decrease. With percent coming back as a stat in this way, you actually are going to see hunters and assassins do more damage to towers again. So again, when we talk about like the different considerations magical versus physical have, this is this is an example.
I'm gonna fuck your towers up while being level 20 at 14 minutes.
All right.
It's over,
Next
dude.
up, we're going to talk about the Executioner. We're going to be decreasing the cost on the item, increasing the power, but we're decreasing the passive shred from 12% per stack to 7% per stack.
Mm-hmm. Hunters had a lot of
get shit on you.
Yeah, we went back and forth on this one for some time. Executioners is kind of analogous to the Spear of the Magus for mages, where it was this kind of defining item, but it was defining in a different way where most hunters could make use of this item really well. It wasn't really defining which hunters were good over other hunters, and so rather than try and change it too much, we just wanted to kind of go with our messaging of the percent pen should be something that you build over the course of the game. Buying this one item kind of negates tanks off the gate. So we're reducing the cost and making this easier to build and giving it some more raw power. just so that the curve is a bit better early on when you're fighting other squishy characters in lane or fighting minions. And then you can let the percent pen help with other percent pen items later on into the game. This balance point that we fall into is one that we had to like really go back and forth on. But given all the other changes that we're about to go into hunters, we feel this is a good spot.
Wait for all the hunters to cry. Got my item.
All right, hunter items up next. Atalanta's bow. We're going to be adding 20% pin to the item, removing the 10% movement speed. And this item is going to have a new passive, which is a fun one. Whenever you get a killer assist on an enemy god, you gain Atalanta's agility, increasing your attack speed and decreasing your movement penalty for basic attacking.
This is half Fatalis. Or like less than that, because it's you have to get a killer assist on an enemy god first, and then you get a reduced Fatalis like effect. And we can balance that 50%. We can adjust that as needed. But it feels really good to be moving quickly in all directions. This one's specifically designed as kind of a new 20% pen option for hunters, since we pretty much took away Titan's Bane from them, except for some rare cases.
Why would they want that though?
Atalanta's bow is your new option here, with 20% pen on it and still already pretty good attack speed and power stats from before that were unchanged. It's losing the movement speed, but it's gaining so much more across the other.
You have the
20%
like once you get a kill, it's
pretty,
dope. Once you get a
huge
kill, the
swing here.
game's over.
And this passive is really strong. Really lets you feel powerful and lets you follow up on kills.
Yeah, bro, Hunter's about to get Pentas. If they last item this last item over boots.
We've got Rage, quick nerf to Rage here, increasing the cost by 100 gold. From 2,300 to
nerfing Rage. Fuck you.
Rage is one of those items that we've seen people really pick up even when they're not going crit builds. So we feel it's a bit too effective for what it's doing. But given the amount that we're about to shake up hunters, obviously the execution change we just talked about in physical pen shift, we wanted to keep that somewhat relevant to where it currently is and let players play around it and do some balancing on it afterwards versus doing a large change to Rage right out the gate. We do recognize that it's a pretty strong item as a whole, and so we're giving it some cost increase to kind of note that.
All right, next up on the list, Silver Branch Bow. We're going to be adding 10% physical penetration, removing the 10 flat pen, but we're increasing the physical power that you gain from the passive per stack.
So what?
I swear this item is going to be good one of these days. This overcap is just a really cool theory crafter type of passive. People really like it. There's a lot of places where you can kind of accidentally build yourself into too much attack speed on certain hunters, especially ones with really strong stims. So I think this item passive is just a great necessity for the game. Now that it's a percent pen option, you can also slot it into builds to round out the amount of tank shred you need, and increasing the amount of power you gain from that passive, just going to make it more powerful in those high attack speed,
get now with like a
high penetration builds. So
I still think
I'm really excited about this change too.
Could be wrong.
Cool. All right, let's talk about the Shurikens. Let's kick it off with 8-pointed Shuriken, lower on the tier. We're just reducing the attack speed there by 3% from 10 to 7, but we've got a new Shuriken coming onto the battleground, Shadow Steel Shuriken, and this is a brand new item. It's 2,500 gold. It's got 20 physical power, 10% attack speed, 20% crit chance, and a passive. Enemies hit by your critical strikes
they
have
brought back
40%
Malice!
reduced healing and regeneration for 8 seconds.
Why?
Yes, we saw hunters especially kind of struggle
Malice?
to really build anti-heal options against teams with high healing. Toxically kind of existed for high attack speed options. Brawlers, you might be able to justify on some of the ability characters, but there wasn't one that really felt hunter-oriented. And so the Shadow Steel Shuriken really fits that slot. Obviously, you're taking a pretty big hit on your offensive stats. 20 power and 10% attack speed isn't much to really go with a crit build, but if you are building that, you have the other synergy items, this can be a pretty good slot for a crit build.
Sustain meta is gone. Healers nerf.
Right, next up, talking about crit builds, Poison Star. We're going to be decreasing the attack speed on the item by 5% and increasing the physical power from 30 to 35.
As we were creating the new Shuriken, and as we're making some pretty big changes to Wind Demon, as you'll see next, we wanted each Shuriken to have a specific stat that it excelled at, right, Pon? Right. So the Poison Star is now the high power Shuriken, whereas the Shadow Steel is the crit chance, and Wind Demon is going to be attack speed and penetration. As you see here, spoiler alert, we're about to give Wind Demon penetration, which I know is really scary, but wait until you see it. Wait until you see it.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about Wind Demon
is going to have
here.
so much built-in pen now?
The crit chance from 20% to 15.
Bro, you guys
decreasing
are
the power from 30 to 25.
Mercury's getting buffed
and
so
the passive
much.
is now going to provide 10% physical penetration in addition to attack speed and movement speed.
Yes, so Wind Demon getting 10% pen is something that we wanted to find a good place for it to go into crit builds to get a little bit percent pen option. And we
Merc
felt Wind Demon
has
was the best
Golden
choice for that.
Blade,
One, because we could put it on the passive, which
cheaper crit,
delays the pen a little
more
bit to where
crit,
you need to actually be building
anti-healing
crit to get it.
crit,
As well as when
crit.
we were adjusting our stats, this item losing out on power and critical strike chance means that you really do need to build more into that critical strike path. Before at 20%, you could almost justify not really building any other crit items with it. But now at 15%, we've seen what that does to crit items where they have lower chances. You really need to build that supplemental item. And so we're hoping that these stats were shifted enough to really make this a good home for the percent pen.
About that mage is back in the solo lane, dude.
Than having just 10% all the time.
All right, let's move right along and talk about Soul Eater next. We're going to be decreasing the cost on the item, decreasing the power, removing the mana, but we're adding 10% physical pen, and it's going to provide 5% ability lifesteal on the base version. And then on the evolved version, we're decreasing the power, removing the mana, adding 10% physical pen, and increasing the physical ability lifesteal from 15% to 20%.
So this is becoming another percent pen option, which required some pretty big shifts to the item. It had ridiculously high amounts of power before to make it more attractive.
Builds are about to change.
Really kind of excessive how much power it had. Surprising that the item was not more popular, even though it had that much physical power on it. So as that power is being adjusted, the cost came down to be appropriate as well. Also, we just liked the passive. People really enjoy this passive, and the fact that you don't really get to experience it at all until it's evolved is maybe a little too punishing. So instead, we are letting players experience some of that lifesteal healing through abilities right upon purchase, and then it's going to get even stronger once the item evolves.
Yep.
All right. Moving right along, we've got Heartseeker up next. We're going to be decreasing the cost here. We're going to be removing the 10% flat pen and adding 10% physical pen. I'm sorry.
Yep. So the big thing here is we needed another percent pen option for the more high power ability assassins. And Heartseeker felt like a great place because it already kind of targeted being a tank buster. And so the flat pen made it too effective kind of against everyone, especially like any squishy target that you were going to go for with that power and flat pen. Dude. So the percent pen better targets what this item's goal really is, which is your answer as an assassin to the frontline tank that's really stopping you from getting
flat pen being gone it sucks. It doesn't matter.
All right, next up, Fail Not. We're going to be just adding 10% physical pen to the item.
There you go. A lot of people like this item, but they felt like it was just lacking something. I think this is a pretty nice something to add to it. I think it fits well with what this item wants to do.
Hunters only, right?
And will help round out a lot of different builds, and hopefully just make it a more attractive one of the Arthurian items.
Dude, I'm sad because I gotta end stream here in like 4 minutes.
Up, I believe this is our last one up for person talking about physical.
I'm gonna miss the rat changes.
We've got Masamune. This item has been removed from the game, but you guys will be able to find something similar on a new item that's being added to the Hammer Tree that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Fuck you, Masamune!
An item called Serrated Edge is going to be taking Masamune's place, and this is a brand new item. It's 2,400 gold, has 40 physical power, 10% lifesteal, 10% movement speed, 20 physical pen, and a passive. If all of your non-ultimate abilities are on cooldown, you gain 40 basic attack power and 10% lifesteal.
Mercury!
Yeah, this one's a really interesting one, and I'm curious to see what characters really end up making use of this kind of passive. The goal here is to give players who use all their abilities to kind of get in and then finish off targets with basic attacks to be further rewarded for that kind of playstyle.
Kit is always on
choosing
cooldown.
to risk maybe their movement ability to get in rather than escape. And it's obviously a 20% pen option, so this is going to be attractive for quite a number of characters, but who can really make use of that passive is the question.
Yeah, this is the assassin 20% pen option. So we have for the as we kind of looked at all of the penetration across the board, most of the items we talked about today have 20% or 10%.
Not as much. Not really.
And you'll be able to build those in some combination to reach that 40%.
Kali, your
That's
one's
what
not
we
always
think
on
will
cooldown.
drive a lot of new build decisions.
All your abilities have to be on cooldown. If I'm Kali, my one's usually up,
only, so
I get the fuck out.
Assassins, but you'll also have Titan's Bane and Atalanta's Bow.
Nemesis
that will be applicable
Nemesis
to
2-ish, but Nemesis kind of sucks dick.
All right, so that wraps it up for the physical penetration shift. We're going to talk about warrior items next, and we're going to start with Glad Shield. Glad Shield is going to be a T3 item in the midseason update. It's going to be 2,500 gold, 25 power, a lot of other stats that we'll have on the screen for you in a second, but the big thing is the passive. We're changing that up significantly. Any enemy god who is under 50% health takes bonus damage from your abilities equal to 15 plus 2 per level.
They're getting rid of
your physical
sustain.
power.
So really what we're saying here is there's no more Glad Shield and Berserker Shield. The tier 2 sustain items in the solo lane are gone. We felt that those were really hamstringing the meta or pushing it in a very specific direction for
they pushed my tattoo
long
thing
time.
back 15 minutes.
Now we're going to see a very different solo lane meta develop without these.
We're good.
Whether
Keep watching.
You know, we might see some
Bro,
certain gods
solo
rise to the top
lane
of the
is
pack
going
because
to
of these
be
changes, and we'll
a
nerf those gods
fighting
accordingly.
lane again.
But the
In a-
idea
in a
here is
lane you
that
gank?
we're going to make the lane more aggressive in general.
Bro,
we're
this
going
is
to
gonna be
prevent these characters from just
beautiful.
over sustaining against each other like crazy. People are maybe going to
Fuck
be
all you
concerned about
warrior
gods that already have
shitlords. I
built-in
can't wait
sustain.
for
But
all
those
you
guys were
kids to
buying
go out and play
Gladiator Shield and
Arthur
Berserker Shield anyway, and their sustain
and
was just
cheer
completely through the
to
roof
get the
now. So no matter
hands.
what happens, we have reduced the amount of sustain in the total solo lane.
All you solo laners are going to get fucking exposed.
Our goal here is to see more kills, right? More solo kills.
SPL solo laners are going to get
make solo laners
exposed.
feel like they can have a bigger impact on
They're
their
not gonna
team
know what to
as a
do
whole
anymore.
by actually winning their lane matchup, as opposed to just out-sustaining each other for 15 to 20 minutes, then joining a team fight. That's really the main goal behind these two changes. So both Gladiator Shield and Berserker Shield are going to be more expensive. They're going to be tier 3s, and they're going to have completely new passives that don't heal the owner of the item.
For sure. Let's go ahead and talk about Berserker Shield and move right along. Like you said, it's going to be a T3 item, and the new passive on Berserker Shield is going to be, if you drop below 40% HP, you become Berserk, and Berserk provides 20 physical power, 20% attack speed, and lasts 5 seconds, refreshes if you're healed or redamaged.
Yeah, so much more aggressive than the kind of Gladiator Shield, which gives you some defensive stats, and it kind of encourages you to use your abilities on lower health targets. This one encourages you to dive in, get low, and then utilize that low health additional boost to really get kills. Warriors like Erlang Shen, maybe Bologna can make use of this. Some assassins who want to be a bit more aggressive and kind of clear their health a little bit more.
Dude, there's going to be some cool builds that come out of Warriors.
Really well, but just a big change to warrior itemization. Glad Shield and Berserker Shield being very different is going to have a kind of a ripple effect on pretty much everything else.
Yeah,
cool.
A lot of big changes going to come from that.
Yeah. Last up for warrior items, we got a new item that we touched on earlier. It's called the Sledge. It's going to be in the hammer tree, and the passive on this is going to be for each enemy within 55 units of you, you're going to gain 10%, or not 10%, 10 magical and 10 physical protections, stacking up to 3 times.
The Sledge.
It's essentially this is Masamune redesigned as a hammer. With some stat changes, and now this will be available to all classes instead of just
holy fuck,
melee,
that's a lot
like
of
it was
health.
in the Katana tree. Treating this mostly as a warrior item, but we could certainly see it picked up on assassins from time to time, although they weren't really picking up Masamune in its current state
I feel like it's just
often, so I'm not sure that's too likely. But this was a really
CCR
popular
effect.
People just like this idea of I get tankier when I'm in the heat of battle. So it was a really popular effect we didn't want to cut from the game, but we needed to make room for that 20% penetration option in an assassin-only tree, because we did not want hunters buying that. So we moved, essentially moved and renamed and rethemed, and we were trying to think of a new type of hammer, and we came up with like a sledgehammer, and instead of giving it a fancy name, we're like, it's just
for each enemy within 55 units.
Watch out, here it comes.
It's got to be gods, right?
Yep,
for sure.
It's got to be
a lot
gods.
more tanky, and the passive works off like 3 gods instead of 5, so skirmish oriented as well.
Right, that's a really good point to note, that you don't have to have such high variance on the item. Now you can actually reach that max efficiency much more often, and in other game modes. Shoutouts to my my Joust friends.
Yep.
There you go. All right, let's move on and talk about all the other items getting changed in mid-season. Let's start with Assassin's Blessing. We're going to be increasing the health on the item. It's now going to provide 7 physical and magical power, increasing the healing from jungle monsters when you kill them, but we're decreasing the bonus damage done to jungle monsters.
Yeah, so this kind of goes along with the goal of the jungle being a more difficult but rewarding objective to fight. We've tuned the numbers so they feel good to fight as other classes, but with that 40%, junglers still kind of just blew through everything and killed everything, and it made it difficult to increase their reward or to really balance them accordingly. And so we've decreased the amount of bonus damage they get. They still are the premier jungle slayers. They're the ones that farm the jungle. And just to make up for the fact that they're going to be a little bit slower at killing things, they're going to gain some bonus sustain so they can survive, as well as the item itself. We've seen a lot of people complain that it just doesn't feel a good enough starter in its own right outside of being able to kill jungle camps. So it's getting a boost of health that you can use maybe when you're trying to gank, and additional power that's going to make you effective against all targets.
7 is a weird number. 5 would have seemed
I mean,
like a baby number. I
I'll-
guess 10 is too much.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
didn't mean to
AJ,
interrupt.
sorry.
Just
Yeah.
a lot of times,
I'll trade some health for more power.
we've heard about Assassin's Blessing needing to have a little bit more wider application, as Pon touched on.
Yeah, because
to shift
CCR is
down.
trash.
And just want people to understand that you're going to be also experiencing this on rebalanced jungle camps.
Wait, do we still have movement speeds?
With different tankiness stats too. So things are going to
Did they
feel a
just
little
take away our
different.
movement speed?
And we just want to encourage experimentation. Try out a lot of different junglers,
Damn,
see
that's a
which
lot of fucking
ones really feel like
ones.
they work and which
Much
ones
love,
don't.
brother.
And we'll be excited to watch and try
Did
out
they,
those
did they
changes
take away our
ourselves.
movement speed and not mention it?
For sure. All right, next up we got Warlock Staff.
What
We're going to
the
be
fuck?
increasing the base power from 65 to 85, but decreasing the base power per stack that the item grants.
So even though this looks like a shift, it's actually a buff because it's buffing it at both stages of its life cycle,
Yes.
just not buffing it as much late game. This was an item we redesigned at Season 7 and we preemptively nerfed before launch because in our internal testing, it was extremely
You get more
powerful.
power, it's
However, we
basic.
launched it a little underwhelming and then, all players
Bro,
weren't
they
there
just
for internal
casually took
testing,
our
so they never
movement
saw
speed
that
away.
powerful Warlock Staff build that we were running. So we're wanting to make sure that we make
This
this
is
item
Transcendence, right?
actually a viable option for mages, and
Oh, no,
we
not-
think
not
that the healthier
Transcendence.
way to do
What
that
is
is
this?
through more power. I think it's good for us to have a power health balanced item.
What
Putting
item is
too
this?
much tankiness on that
Warlocks,
item
okay,
is gonna
Warlocks. I
kinda
don't know
cause
why I said
problems for
Transcendence.
Sure.
I
So
knew it
we
was a mage.
Focused on this specific update on giving it more power.
All right, moving right along. Book of Thoth going to be seeing a decrease in cost.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of builds
Bro, they didn't
kind of
touch
divert
any of
from
the
doing
hammers.
these more stacking items, more long-term focused investment. Part
not
of that's just
hammers,
because
the
they're
maces.
difficult to really build into as they should be, but they're a bit too difficult for that. So Book of Thoth, getting a cost reduction, making it easier to start that build path and get some of its power. We've seen some DPS kind of calculations around
dude.
like
Book of
how
Thoth's
it
coming
compares to
back.
other items, and it just didn't.
Book of Thoth is
The difficulty for
100%
building
coming
it
back.
didn't really
Baba
justify
Yaga's gonna be nuts now.
the amount of power you got out of it. So making it easier to build will help that.
Baba Yaga online earlier now with double
All right,
buffs.
next up we've got
You literally just
Tyrannical
buffed
Plate
Baba
Helm, a
Yaga
new
so
item that
hard.
we saw this year. We're going to be increasing the magical power here, and then also increasing the bonus minion health that it grants.
This is essentially a revert. People saw this item at Season 7. I think they just
They
got like a little bit of
rebuffed
sticker
Tyrannical
shock.
Plate Helm?
And we listened to the feedback and we nerfed the item. And then when it launched, pretty much no one bought it. So we're buffing it back in a few ways to hopefully bring it back to being a viable option. Maybe opening up the soul lane to more guardians. But we never really. I didn't feel like we really ever got to see this item really tested because we might have over nerfed it pre-Season 7.
All right, next up is a fun one, Mail of Renewal. We're going to be decreasing the time it takes to heal for 15% and regain 15% mana from 5 seconds to 3 seconds.
Yeah, with some sustain options being removed from the kind of warrior bucket, some of the other sustain options that exist could be a bit more effective. Mail renewal takes a long time to really get the health going after you secure an objective or win a team fight. Just making it easier and also making it less prone to being overwritten. Because if you only get like one tick of it and then you get another kill or another objective, it would kind of eat the rest of it. Much more of it is going to be effectively going to you.
Right.
All right, got another sustain option up next. Stone of Gaia. We're going to be increasing the healing per second on this item.
Yeah, Stone of Gaia, although we haven't seen it much in the meta, it is a pretty consistently popular item in our casual player circles. Players playing Assault, players playing at a slightly lower skill levels of Conquest. That extra free sustain just feels really good.
Bro,
but it's
HP builds
I think,
are gonna
I think
be
most
nutty.
people would agree that it's been feeling underpowered for quite a while. So we're just buffing that as sustain, and
HP
Isaiah, you said
items are
you
gonna
said
be
it really
weird.
well. As
Be
we're
a lot of health on
shifting
the
some of the
boards, boys.
sustain options around here, we're not necessarily eliminating it all from the game entirely, but we are making it focus towards a little bit more mid-game to late game when you buy it. It's going to be harder to rush, and focusing a little bit more on specifically tankier or aggressive items being separated as opposed to items like Gladiator Shield. This just gave you the perfect rounded out stats of all attack, protection, counter, CDR, and healing all in one item. That was just too much in one place.
For sure. All right, here is a spicy one for you guys. Hide of the Nemean Lion. We're removing the current passive, and it's going to have a new passive. Every
No
15
more reflect
seconds,
damage.
the item is going to generate a block stack for the owner.
Yeah, reflect damage is one of those things that, like, when it's strong, it feels bad to play against. When it's not
Bro.
strong, it feels bad to play as. It's a counter
Mercury.
option that
Is
kind of
back.
feels weird to play around. In short bursts, in controlled settings, like with relics
all
and with its god
Mercury,
abilities,
boys.
it's more fair, but this kind of
all
always-on
Mercury.
effect feels very difficult and punishing to play around. We're just going to move its effect to something that does a similar goal of
all my
mitigating
viewers left me, dude.
offensive, especially range
I
damage
think
or
it's
basic
bug,
attack
mama.
damage,
Twitch been
and making
bugged
it a
today.
more consistent, reliable proc that is potentially stronger at actually stopping damage from happening to you, but the hunter isn't going to also eat a lot of its health pool trying to actually do damage.
I'm really interested to see what the hunter mains out there say about this item, because reflect damage was a really controversial discussion, and a lot of times people were really frustrated by it. But block stacks are really powerful too. And obviously we tried to design this item to fit kind of a similar anti-hunter role, but to do it in a less frustrating way. So I'm interested to see what the players think about it and how this feels to play against. And I would also note that this passive has the cooldown time before it generates a block stack is a really strong balance point, right? Right now it's a relatively short time
one stack?
because we expect you most of the time to just clear the block stack
Yeah,
and
that's
then
just a
continue
shit
fighting.
item,
But we could
right?
increase that time as a pretty easy way to balance this item going
I
forward.
feel like that item's garbage. Like, why would you ever build that?
All right, next up on the list, we've got Ring of Hecate, and this item is going to be seeing a little bit of a rework here, and it's going to have a new passive. Each successful basic attack is going to apply a hex to enemies and empower you. Enemies are going to be receiving 5% decreased power per stack, and you receive 5% increased power and healing gained.
So Ring of Hecate, we tried and failed, I'd say, to rework a ring item on season 7, which is okay, I think our goals at that time made sense, but we really kind of found that we can't outcompete Bancroft's Talon without deleting that item from the game or heavily reworking it, and that is a really popular item. So we're
and
pivoting
healing.
on Ring of Hecate,
Interesting.
making it more of a late game focus and making it more of a boxing focus. So really what this is kind of
late game
reminiscent
you're like
of
one-shotting
Ichabod,
though.
but for mage ADCs. So you can build into this at a later game, and you can
early
use this when
trade
you're
would
kind
be
of in that stage where most of the team has left you alone in that long lane, and you're 1v1ing the enemy hunter as a way to get a really strong power swing and sustain swing. Interesting to say as well, this increased healing.
Yep.
It's not like what is it, Rod of Asclepius and Caduceus Shield, which kind of specifically affect your healing. This one can affect heals that apply to you on many different ways. Actually, I'm a little mixed up. I'm sorry, Palman.
That's good. It works like that. The
Trolling.
goal here is really give that kind of like shifty power exchange, make it more hex-like, fit with the theme of Ring of Hecate.
I'm gonna host the
and
Smite
also
Gems
keep it
channel
focused on like
because
the
I
life
have to
steal
go
sustain.
to
So
a
you're improving
tattoo
that
consultation.
while you're also
So
decreasing
finish
your
this off with them, boys and girls,
and
and I will see you tonight.
Sorry, I got tripped up a little bit there. What I was saying is that this does work almost more like a self buff, like